Imagine having no choice but to marry a dragon. Not just any dragon either. A powerful, feared, ridiculously attractive dragon who could probably turn an entire kingdom into ash if she felt like it. But refusing the marriage, that isn't an option. Because for a noble, being cast out by your family is more than just losing your home. It means losing your name, your title, your inheritance, your place in society. It is, in every way that matters, a death sentence. So when your family gives you one simple choice, marry the dragon, or be disowned. But honestly, after seeing the dragon waiting for you at the altar, might as well pass me the controller, bro. Maybe replacing the original groom isn't such a bad idea. Alright, enough yapping. So it all kicks off with our boy Ferda Rosnova getting hit with what his father calls a not-so-bad proposal. Spoiler, it's actually terrible. Turns out he's only got two options on the table. Either get engaged to the Grand Duchess Rosnova, who is literally a dragon, and risk getting absolutely wrecked by Snoo Snoo, or get thrown out of the Rosnova family for good. To our boy, that's basically a death sentence dressed up as a choice. Because turning down the engagement means saying goodbye to his family forever, while saying yes basically guarantees he ends up dead in a dragon's claws. Even with all that stacked against him, our boy still desperately wants to stay part of the Rosnova family. Like deep down, he just wants to belong. Being the frail third son, born to his dad's side chick in a family full of knights, he's never really had anyone in his corner. For years he grinds through every hardship out there, holding on to the belief that if he just tries hard enough, recognition will eventually come. Sadly though, the family had already stopped looking his way a long time ago. Once our boy finally clocks that painful truth, he decides to walk away from the Rosnova family on his own terms. And just like that, he's officially disowned and kicked out for good. As he's walking away, the resentment just keeps building and building inside him. Even though his father knew exactly how much he'd struggled, the man still went and bought that milk anyway. From that point on, our boy swears he's gonna make the entire family regret ever throwing him out like trash. And get this, that same day he awakens as a mage at 18, which compared to other trainees is way too late in the game. Normally every mage pulls their power from the mana inside them, but our boy's different. His whole magic runs on pure hatred and vengeance instead. The more grudges he holds onto, the stronger he gets. After grinding out years of stacking up that hatred, he finally hits the 6th circle and becomes a full-blown archmage. The moment he gets his hands on that overwhelming power, the very first place our boy heads back to is his old home, the Rosnova family. He manipulates the servants who used to mock him, turning them against each other until they backshot one another. Then he moves on to the eldest and second sons, feeding them hatred until they end up destroying each other completely. In the end, only one person's left standing, the man our boy hates the absolute most, the one who bought that milk and never even came back for him, his own father. After watching his entire family get wiped out, Ferda's father completely breaks, spirit gone, negative aura, and starts begging our boy to just end his life already. But our boy stays calm and simply tells him to take a good long look at the proud Rosnova family he built with his own two hands. With everyone else already dead, our boy just watches as his father completely falls apart, the whole nightmare playing out right in front of him. Not long after, everything even remotely tied to the Rosnova name is wiped off the map for good and got sent into the gulag in one day. Even after achieving his revenge, Ferda realizes that it is still not enough. His hatred and anger refuse to fade and instead spread across the entire continent. As a result, countless powerful figures come after him with their swords drawn. Despite facing them all, Ferda survives once again and reaches the highest realm any human has ever attained. He becomes an 8th circle great mage. Even then, his enemies continue to resent him. So here's the thing. He knows they're going to come for revenge sooner or later, just like he once did back in the day. Because of that, he decides to get even stronger and stack up more aura. His next target, the realm beyond humanity itself, the 9th circle, basically demigod status, and even have a chance to bag some goddess baddies. But to even get there, he needs some genuinely overwhelming power, and turns out unlocking the 9th circle requires the heart of the Crimson Dragon herself, Grand Duchess Rosnova. So naturally, our boy decides he's going to kill the dragon and take her heart. Not through love and Snoo Snoo, but literally. But fate, being fate, has other plans. Before long, a brutal fight breaks out between Ferda and Valdrova, and both of them end up seriously banged up. Valdrova finds it kind of ironic that the guy who was once supposed to be her fiancé is now here trying to kill her. Our boy tells her flatly that she should just die quietly by his hands. Calmly though, Valdrova explains that she's well aware humans call her a tyrant. She just genuinely doesn't get why our boy have this much beef with her. She reveals she's never once shown herself to humanity. Not even before Ferda was born, and has always stayed far away from the human world. Unable to wrap her head around the beef aimed at her, she wonders out loud what kind of grudge could fuel that much beef. Hearing that, our boy doesn't hold back. He blames her for literally everything wrong in his life. In his head, she's the root of all his misfortune. He explains that it was her selfish wish to find a human fiancé that got him kicked out of the Rosnova family in the first place. Valdrova questions whether that's really her fault. Our boy insists it absolutely is, that her greed to take a human as a mate is exactly what wrecked his life. After taking that in, Valdrova slowly raises her hand. At the same time, our boy activates his magic circle, bracing for round 2. But instead of striking him, she plunges her own hand straight into her chest. The sight leaves our boy completely frozen. Valdrova reminds him that his magic needs a dragon's heart, and he immediately assumes she's trying to destroy it before he can get it. To him, that heart is his only shot at the 9th circle, so without thinking twice, he goes in for another attack. Except Valdrova willingly hands her own heart over to him instead. Completely thrown off, our boy asks why she'd go this far. He realizes she could have easily killed someone like him, even in her final moments. Valdrova admits she knows that, but she chooses not to, because she believes he became miserable because of her. Our boy is wrong for this, for real. Then she finally drops the truth she's been carrying for who knows how long. She's always hated herself, hated the vicious dragon blood running through her veins, hated the uncontrollable urge to rage and destroy for no reason, hated the version of herself she could never fully control. She believed her very existence only ever brought people fear, and figured that if she just died, everything would finally be resolved. Even so, she once wished for happiness while she was still alive, a wish she now calls foolish, since it only caused suffering for everyone around her. Her final hope is that Ferda, at least, can find happiness through her sacrifice, the last thing she believes she can do for him. Hearing that, our boy doesn't hold back. He blames her for literally everything wrong in his life. In his head, she's the root of all his misfortune. He explains that it was her selfish wish to find a human fiancé that got him kicked out of the Roznova family in the first place. Valdrova questions whether that's really her fault. Our boy insists it absolutely is, that her greed to take a human as a mate is exactly what wrecked his life. Right as our boy prepares to cast the one and only spell a 9th circle mage can use, his eyes suddenly snap open. To his shock, he's standing right in front of his father again. His father scolds him for zoning out while he's mid-yap. Our boy is speechless. He clearly remembers his father becoming crippled and eventually dying, and it hits him instantly. He's somehow been sent back to that exact day. His father repeats, once again, that Ferda's engagement to Duchess Valdrova has been decided, and that refusing means expulsion from the family. This time, though, our boy steps forward without a shred of hesitation. Unlike last time, he accepts the engagement immediately. And just like that, Ferda, second son of the Roznova family, becomes the talk of the entire household after agreeing to what most people consider a straight-up death sentence. The news absolutely stuns his older brother, Hurin, who can barely process it. In Hurin's mind, Ferda was never the type to willingly walk into a fate that promised nothing but ruin. After hearing that Ferda dismissed every servant and locked himself in his room before leaving, Hurin assumes his little brother has finally cracked under the pressure and goes to confront him, fully expecting to find fear and despair waiting. Instead, Hurin finds our boy calmly packing for the trip. No panic, no hesitation, and ready for snoo-snoo. When asked why he's acting so strange, Ferda explains he's just getting used to living without servants, since his future's not going to include any family privileges anymore. Hurin stays suspicious, wondering if Ferda actually understands what he just signed up for. Our boy makes it crystal clear that he knows exactly what's coming. By accepting the proposal, he's effectively cut himself off from the Roznova family for good. Hurin mocks the decision anyway, insisting the engagement is nothing but a one-way ticket to destruction. He brings up the grim track record of Valdrova's past grooms, none of whom lasted long. Way back, the first man chosen as her groom was the Empire's third prince, gifted with sharp intelligence and striking looks, who'd even given up his claim to the throne for the chance. Yet just one day after reaching Valdrova's territory, he's found in a horrifying state, body brutally beaten not by snoo-snoo but by a literal stomp. Hurin genuinely can't understand why Ferda thinks he'd survive an ordeal that broke someone as capable as the prince. Even though he thinks the whole thing is idiotic, Hurin warns that if Ferda tries to flee the engagement, he'll personally end it himself before Valdrova ever gets the chance. Our boy stays completely unbothered by the threats. Instead, he quietly reflects on Hurin's total lack of self-control, remembering the shameful feelings his older brother secretly harbors for their eldest brother's wife. Knowing that little weakness alone is enough to keep Hurin in check, Ferda focuses on just keeping up appearances. Realizing the long road ahead is only just starting, when it's finally time to leave, the estate's elderly butler tearfully sends him off, outwardly acting like serving Ferda had been the honor of a lifetime. But our boy remembers a very different reality. As a kid, he believed his weak body was just poor health, only to later find out the servants had been secretly poisoning his meals the whole time. Even though those memories fill him with disgust and stir up an old urge for revenge, he chooses not to act on it. He simply thanks the butler for his years of service, while quietly reminding him of the hardships they'd both lived through. After leaving his family in the servant's care, our boy steps into the carriage without looking back. As the wheels start rolling, he realizes something inside him has genuinely changed and he became a chill guy now. The burning hatred that once ran his entire life, gone. Having already gotten his revenge in another lifetime, he no longer carries that endless rage that used to consume him. He reflects on the red magic fueled entirely by hatred that he used to rely on. Intoxicating at first, sure, but over time it became impossible to control. Like a straight-up addiction, it slowly poisoned his mind and soul, until violence and destruction were the only emotions left he could even feel. Now for the first time in years, he feels genuine peace, and honestly, the quiet is surprisingly comforting. He's now a low-cortisol guy. Eventually, the carriage reaches the edge of Valdrova's territory, where a lonely wooden sign marks the forest entrance, warning anyone dumb enough to read it that going further is forbidden. After stepping down with his luggage, our boy waits calmly while the terrified coachman bolts, clearly not trying to stick around a cursed place any longer than he has to. Left completely alone, Furta figures he can fall back on basic fourth circle magic if any wild beasts show up. Before long, a gust of wind stirs through the trees, drawing his attention to a mysterious figure hiding in the forest. A young maid steps out of the shadows, introducing herself as Lurian, one of Valdrova's loyal attendants. She looked kinda fine though. After confirming who he is, she leads him toward the castle. Along the way, our boy reflects on Valdrova's reputation. The people of the Arkan Empire love bragging about their own strength while conveniently ignoring what's happening beyond their borders. Because out east, the land is overrun with demons and monstrous creatures. And yet it's Valdrova, and Valdrova alone, who's held that line and kept the Empire safe from constant invasion. Despite that, countless rumors still paint her as a terrifying tyrant commanding an army of monsters. Our boy thinks that's deeply unfair, especially since the people spreading those stories don't even have the guts to confront her directly. During the walk, wolves silently close in around the path, but noticing Furta's caught on, Lurian casts a protective spell that keeps the beasts from attacking as long as they stay together. Curious about how much farther they've got, our boy learns the castle's still a solid 2 hours out on foot. When he asks how Lurian covered the same ground so fast, he finds out she could have made the trip in seconds by flying. That answer confirms his suspicion. Lurian's no ordinary servant. She's a powerful dragon spawn, her true form hidden under a human disguise. Confident in his own skills, our boy suggests they just take to the skies instead, an idea that gets shut down immediately, leaving him stuck trudging through the forest the hard way. After a long exhausting march, they finally reach the massive gates of Valdrova's castle. Even from outside, our boy can feel an overwhelming aura radiating off the place. The dragon's presence alone carries power on a whole different level. Lurian heads in to announce his arrival while he waits outside, hoping to meet Valdrova face to face, only for that request to get shot down. Instead, Lurian comes back with an official message. His courage is noted. Sure, but Valdrova has zero interest in going through with a marriage that was arranged against her will. Being offered a way out actually surprises him. In his previous life, he would have taken that exit without a second thought. This time, though, completely different story. Nobody forced him to come here. Staying is entirely his own call. Dead set on seeing it through, our boy refuses to walk away from the engagement. Lurian reluctantly carries his answer back inside, then returns again, this time hauling a massive sack overflowing with gold, offered as compensation so he can go start a new life somewhere else. Our boy doesn't even glance at it. Neither power nor riches interest him one bit. His only goal is following through on the engagement with Valdrova. His stubbornness finally burns through the last of Lurian's patience. Frustration flips straight into rage, and she unleashes her true form, horns sprouting from her head, claws extending, a massive reptilian tail unfurling behind her. A powerful green aura erupts around her as she unleashes full-on dragon fear, and the pressure alone is enough to slam our boy flat onto the ground. From where Lurian's standing, every human who comes looking for Valdrova is chasing greed and ambition, nothing more. And that's when it clicks for our boy. He finally gets why the third prince met such a miserable end. His arrogance and hidden ambition had been obvious from day one, since he never wanted companionship, just a way to dominate and exploit Valdrova. Seeing no real difference between him and the last groom, Lurian pins Furta to the ground with her claws, silently writing him off as just another selfish human headed for the same tragic ending. Even flattened under that kind of pressure though, our boy stays completely calm. Instead of fighting back, he quietly reaffirms his sincerity to himself. He didn't come here for coercion, wealth, or political ambition. Remembering that, our boy makes a silent vow. This time he's standing beside her not for personal gain, but because he genuinely wants to be her groom and protect the person who once saved his life. Hearing him insist that Valdrova, as his future wife, should speak to him directly instead of through a servant, Lurian snaps. She goes to attack in anger, then suddenly stops herself, apologizes, and heads back to the castle to report exactly what he said. In front of the Grand Duchess, she repeats it word for word. Appearing in her elegant human form, Valdrova is caught off guard by our boy's boldness and finds herself genuinely curious about him. Even though Lurian criticizes him as physically weak, she admits he's handsome and, more importantly, unlike any human she's dealt with before, since even after taking the full brunt of her dragon fear, he showed no fear at all. Pleased by that, Valdrova smiles, happy to have finally met a human who can look her in the eyes and speak to her like a normal person. She decides to go ahead with the engagement after all. Lurian relays the decision and escorts our boy to his guest room, where he's genuinely surprised at how clean and well kept the castle is. Turns out Lurian handles every single task besides serving Valdrova directly. Since the marriage hasn't happened yet, she insists on treating him strictly as a guest, explaining that the engagement ceremony will be held 1 month later, inside the dragon's lair, but of course she's got her own condition attached. During those 30 days, Ferda had to prove he was worthy of her ass. I mean, becoming Valdrova's partner. She admitted the challenge came from herself, not her mistress, because she refused to allow just anyone to remain by the dragon's side. Even with his frail body, he had to demonstrate genuine potential. Rather than feeling offended, Ferda admired Lurian's unwavering loyalty to Valdova. At the same time, he wondered why such faithful companions had not been there during the tragic end of his previous life. He accepted the challenge without hesitation, understanding that proving himself meant surpassing even the standards expected of an emperor. His confidence only made Lurian trust him less, not more. That night, our boy sat with his greatest weakness. Right now, besides having no huzz, he had zero magic. Sure, he'd once clawed his way to the 9th circle as an archmage, but after the time rewind, he lost every bit of it. He remembered that the first circle sets the foundation for every mage. A blue circle forms through calm meditation and being a chill guy, while the red circle draws on hatred and being rage-baited instead. The exact same dangerous path that nearly destroyed him last time around. This time, though, he's picking the chill guy route. A whole week passed with our boy tirelessly meditating, trying over and over to form a blue circle. Despite carrying his past life memories, every single attempt failed, and forming one naturally usually takes years, with only 3 weeks left before the engagement. So yeah, time was running out fast. During one of his many failed attempts, Lurian drops by and notices he still looks completely unchanged. While our boy calmly keeps eating and insists he'll figure it out eventually, privately he admits to himself he needs a whole different approach. Suddenly, a violent tremor shakes the entire castle. Lurian explains that Valdrova's outside hunting monsters invading from the eastern lands. Curious as always, our boy decides he wants to see the battle himself. Lurian warns him that an ordinary human could never survive being anywhere near her aura, basically mocking the idea, but our boy insists that witnessing the battle is literally the duty of the dragon's future partner. Reluctantly, Lurian carries him through the sky on her dragon wings. After landing on a cliff overlooking the battlefield, our boy struggles to process the overwhelming speed before finally turning his attention to the valley below. The scene leaves him speechless. A dark valley crawling with gigantic monsters, and right in the middle of it, Valdrova's massive red dragon form dominating the entire battlefield. She's tearing through massive serpents with her claws like it's nothing, crushing them in her jaws, unleashing fire breath that torches everything in its path. Her roar alone sends a shockwave rippling across the whole valley. Even from the cliff, our boy is completely overwhelmed by the sheer pressure of her power. His body starts shaking uncontrollably. Cold sweat pours down his face, and he collapses to his knees as the dragon's aura crushes his spirit. Watching him crumble, Lurian reminds him this terrifying dragon is literally who he's planning to marry, and questions how an ordinary human could ever stand beside someone this powerful. Looking down, she notices his hand pressed against the dirt, his whole body trembling under the pressure, and to her, that's all the confirmation she needs. Lurian explains that red dragon blood carries an untamable violent nature. Beings like Valdrova are born with a raw destructive instinct, and a presence no ordinary person could ever handle. In her mind, this proves living beside a dragon means constant danger. Full stop, humans and dragons could never stand as true equals, and she's convinced her mistress will eventually see it that way too. To her total surprise, though, our boy slowly lifts his head and he's smiling. Instead of fear, his eyes are filled with admiration and awe as he stares at Valdrova's true form. Lurian is stunned. The terrifying display somehow inspired wonder instead of dread. Taking an uneasy step back, she starts wondering if this guy is just fearless or straight up insane. Later that night, back in the quiet castle under a peaceful moonlit sky, our boy rests in his room, replaying everything that just happened. Even though he'd mentally braced himself beforehand, the dragon's overwhelming aura, roar, and dragon fear pushed his body way past its limits. He remembers Lurian carrying him back afterward, completely worn out herself from the speed of the flight. Honestly, he figures it's a miracle his mind's still intact. As he replays the battle in his head, our boy wonders why he even insisted on watching something so dangerous in the first place. And then out of nowhere, it hits him. The terrifying spectacle hadn't scared him off. If anything, it awakened a genuine desire to see Valdrova again. He thinks about her tirelessly defending the eastern border, tearing apart monsters over and over just to protect the people and land she cares about. To him, her actions look exactly like a noble knight who willingly takes on endless hardship for the sake of others. Standing by the open window, arms spread as a cool breeze rolls through the room, he just admires her resolve. He smiles softly, realizing how wild it is that someone as remarkable as Valdrova agreed to accept him as her future partner. Right then, a powerful crimson energy suddenly gathers around his hands. Our boy instantly recognizes it, a red circle forming. Alarmed, he tries to suppress it immediately, refusing to repeat the mistakes that consumed his last life. But as he actually pays attention to the mana itself, something feels different. The image of Valdrova in battle floods his mind again. Her crimson, majestic figure fighting fearlessly against impossible odds stays burned into his thoughts. As he focuses on that memory, he realizes the emotion fueling his mana this time is nothing like the hatred and revenge that powered his old magic. Staying seated in meditation, our boy locks in completely on this unfamiliar feeling before it can slip away, carefully compressing and rotating the red mana between his hands, staying fully focused as the energy wraps around him, pouring every ounce of his determination into it. He successfully forms a single magic circle. The second it stabilizes, he smiles with genuine satisfaction. Still a red circle, sure, but its entire nature is completely different from the one he built in his previous life. Looking down at this newly awakened power with real determination, he silently vows to never repeat the same tragic mistakes again. The next morning, Lurian walks into his room and is instantly floored. She realizes Ferda somehow activated his mana circuits overnight, something that should have been flat out impossible. Curious, she tries to figure out how he pulled off something so unbelievable. Our boy acknowledges her sharp eye and confidently implies he managed it because he's far from ordinary. Even though Lurian reluctantly admits he cleared the challenge she set for him, our boy stays realistic about it. He knows awakening his circuits is just step one, with a much longer road still ahead. After finishing his meal, he asks if there's somewhere nearby he could keep training. Not long after, they arrive at an open practice field with straw targets scattered across the sandy ground. Lurian proudly explains she personally set the whole area up in under half a day, and our boy genuinely praises her efficiency for it. When Lurian asks why he wanted such basic training targets instead of expensive magical gear, he explains his current goal isn't raw power, it's perfecting mana control. The explanation confuses her, since as a dragon spawn, controlling magical energy comes as naturally to her as breathing. Our boy points out most humans would call that kind of advantage straight up unfair, while Lurian proudly reminds him she's got dragon blood running through her too. He watches her for a moment and privately thinks people born with that much natural talent could never really understand the grind it takes for humans to get strong. He then invites her to watch him train. He recalls that mana control usually starts with stability, normally the whole foundation of the blue circle, but the red circle he just awakened works completely differently. It demands he stir up powerful emotions while somehow maintaining total control over them at the same time. Only by balancing those two opposing forces could he unlock its real potential. In his previous life, it took him a full year just to extract mana from hatred, and another year to compress it into a stable sphere, a painful grind that eventually let him create powerful mana projectiles. Thanks to everything he's carrying over from that life, the exact same process now only takes 2 minutes. Lurian watches in total disbelief as our boy effortlessly forms a perfectly stable sphere of crimson mana on his very first try. Before she can even process it, he casually forms 3 more floating spheres around his hand. With precise control, he fires the projectiles at the practice targets, crimson spheres streaking through the air at insane speed before exploding on impact, completely obliterating the targets in a single blast. Satisfied, our boy looks down at his own hands and quietly realizes his mastery over magic never actually disappeared, it was just waiting. Meanwhile, Lurian stays silent, carefully replaying the flawless display she just witnessed. Sometime later, she meets with Valdrova inside a cavern and reports everything about Ferda's disturbingly fast progress as a mage. Since Valdrova doesn't really know human magical standards, she asks just how impressive this actually is. Lurian admits his performance was basically flawless, which, instead of reassuring her, only makes her more suspicious. In her mind, no ordinary human pulls off something that perfect without hiding some kind of angle. Unable to fully figure him out, she even wonders if he's just got some weird obsession with pain. Valdrova finds it kind of funny that Lurian is now singing this human's praises, especially after fighting the engagement so hard at the start. Reluctantly, Luri admits our boy keeps blowing past her expectations. Valdrova decides she wants to believe in the sincerity he's consistently shown her. Luri, though, can't shake how badly humans have hurt her mistress before. Determined to protect Valdrova from going through that again, she resolves to dig up his real intentions. With that in mind, Ruri proposes handing our boy an important assignment, one designed to reveal his true character. Intrigued, Valdrova smiles and asks what kind of task she's got in mind. Not long after, our boy shows up dressed in an elegant red noble outfit. As his formal arrival gets announced, the Grand Duchess summons every local noble to the Great Hall. Plenty of them complain about being pulled together while monsters are actively threatening the territory, but the conversation quickly shifts to Valdrova's future groom. The nobles mock the unknown man, calling him a weak noble who probably can't even hold a sword. The old fossil, Count Olvera, dismisses him outright, assuming Valdrova will just get rid of him eventually anyway. Our boy walks in with calm confidence next to Lurian. Earlier, he'd questioned why meeting the nobles even mattered. Lurian explained that after Valdrova took down the Black Dragon Godwin and claimed her lands, she focused entirely on fighting monsters, meaning her future husband would be expected to govern the territory while she guards its borders. Realizing this is basically a leadership test, he accepts, introducing himself as Valdrova's future companion. Our boy asks the nobles how they'd like to be treated, and the unexpected question throws the whole room off balance. Count Olvera replies that they deserve respect for their long service to the empire. Our boy just repeats the question until the Count finally admits that, as the Grand Duchess's future groom, Ferda technically has the right to command them. He then assures everyone they'll keep ruling their own lands regardless. One noble takes offense, assuming he's being accused of exploiting his own people. After a sarcastic apology, our boy gets mocked for his exile from the Rosanova family. The noble boasts about being a fourth circle mage, while our boy calmly admits that's respectable, even though he's technically only first circle. Enraged, the noble prepares to attack, but our boy proposes a formal duel instead. Everyone in the room assumes the fourth circle mage wins this easily. Inside the arena, the noble announces he'll be using the fourth circle spell, Mana Explosion. Our boy calmly reveals he'll fight using nothing but the most basic spell, Mana Shot, insisting that knowledge matters way more than raw power. As the noble activates a massive transmutation circle, our boy instantly spots its weak points. He fires off 3 crimson mana shots that shatter the circle before it even finishes activating, triggering a violent backlash that sends the mage flying across the arena. The defeated noble realizes it takes serious control to destroy an active magic circle like that. His mana collapses, and he admits defeat. Instead of holding a grudge, he confesses his lifelong desire to get stronger, acknowledges our boy's superiority, and pledges loyalty on the spot. The nobles watch in disbelief until Lurien shuts down anyone who dares question the outcome. The mage introduces himself as Thessalos Walter, praising our boy as the protector the Eastern Territory desperately needs, and calling his exile a straight-up blessing. Hearing the name, our boy suddenly remembers, in his previous life, Thessalos had been his greatest benefactor. Confused, Thessalos can only watch as our boy touches his forehead and fires a point-blank mana shot, no warning at all. The blast sends him crashing across the arena, bleeding and motionless, while the horrified nobles freeze in place. Our boy looks down without a hint of emotion, convinced Thessalos had to die, because in the future, he becomes the source of Valdrova's greatest sorrow. He walks out of the arena without so much as glancing back. His expression doesn't change at all, as if taking a life carried zero emotional weight. The horrifying sight leaves every noble in the hall completely frozen. Fear spreads through the room as whispers fill the air. They'd all just watched the duel end, and yet the young man still delivered the final blow before anyone could even react. Plenty of them silently condemn what just happened, but not a single person there has the guts to confront him about it. Noticing all their frozen expressions, our boy regards the crowd with calm amusement. Their fear seems almost excessive to him. In his head, killing Thessalos wasn't cruelty, it was simply necessary. Letting that man live would eventually bring unimaginable suffering to the Grand Duchess, making the execution unavoidable in his mind. Count Olvera struggles to make sense of that logic. From where he's standing, our boy just met Thessalos, so that kind of certainty shouldn't even be possible. The explanation that follows only makes things more confusing. Our boy's entire reasoning centers on Valdrova's wish to build a peaceful world where humanity can live without fear. Even though she's a dragon, she keeps risking her own life to protect mankind from countless threats. Thessalos' future actions in his eyes would betray everything she's fought for. Unfortunately, the proof of those future crimes belongs to a future that hasn't happened yet, leaving our boy with zero way to actually justify himself. The gathered nobles just exchange bewildered looks, fully convinced they're standing in front of a madman who just sentenced someone for a crime that hasn't even occurred. Their opinions mean absolutely nothing to him. Whether they buy his reasoning or not makes no difference either way. Later, a royal carriage races down a rough dirt road under the warm glow of a setting sun. Inside, our boy leans forward, gripping his head as waves of dizziness and nausea wash over him. His precisely aimed mana shot during the duel drained nearly every drop of mana in his body, leaving him completely wrecked physically. And the violent shaking of the carriage, yeah, that's not helping at all. Unable to hide his discomfort, our boy silently wished the advanced magical vehicles from his previous life still existed. Luria observed his miserable state with obvious sarcasm, finding it almost unbelievable that their very first visit to the Eastern Territory had ended with Ferda personally killing one of Valdrova's most trusted followers. Curious whether she truly meant Thessalos, Ferda pressed her further, and Luria confirmed that appearances could be deceiving. The deceased lord had indeed shown great loyalty toward the Grand Duchess throughout the years. That revelation briefly concerned Ferda, prompting him to ask whether Thessalos had genuinely been an honorable ruler. Luria offered a balanced answer. In her opinion, the lord had been neither completely righteous nor entirely corrupt. Compared to the other nobles governing the Eastern Territory, he had still ranked among the better ones. Even after hearing that assessment, our boy never doubted his decision. The engagement with Valdrova and have the snoo-snoo with a dragon would continue exactly as planned, because eliminating Thessalos had been absolutely necessary. Closing his eyes, he carefully combed through the memories of his previous life, reconstructing every detail connected to the man. His attention drifted toward the sack containing Thessalos' severed head, as forgotten memories slowly resurfaced. According to what he remembered, this very period marked the beginning of the Lord's most horrifying crimes. When they finally reached Thessalos' castle, the estate's chief butler politely welcomed the envoys sent by the Grand Duchess, explaining that his master was currently absent from the residence. Ferda calmly corrected the misunderstanding, revealing that the ain't coming back. Without hesitation, Luria tossed the heavy sack into the bewildered butler's arms and told him to keep hold of it, further ordering that its contents be displayed prominently above the castle's main gate as a public warning. The butler cautiously opened the sack, only to collapse into complete panic after recognizing his master's severed head inside. His horror went completely ignored, as Ferda and Luria proceeded straight toward Thessalos' basement in search of hidden evidence of corruption. Ferda casually reminded Luria that retrieving the head from the battlefield had already provided valuable assistance. She jokingly threatened to take it back and cancel the engagement, but the conversation immediately shifted after Ferda noticed something unusual beneath the bed. Upon closer look beside a musty sock, it revealed the outline of a concealed entrance, hidden beneath the wooden floor. Our boy searched for the mechanism that would unlock it, but the process dragged on longer than expected. Growing impatient, Luria ordered him to move aside. She simply clenched her fist before delivering an overwhelming punch that shattered the wooden floor outright, blasting the hidden passage open in an instant. After brushing off the dust, she calmly announced that the entrance was now open, and together they descended the narrow stone staircase leading deep beneath the castle. With every step, the air grew colder and heavier, until an unbearable stench of blood and decay overwhelmed their senses. Both instinctively covered their noses as they entered a horrifying underground laboratory. Surgical tools scattered across blood-stained tables, human remains and monster corpses grotesquely fused together through horrifying experiments. Ferdo immediately recognized the location as Thessalos' secret research facility. Behind the respected noble's public image had existed a devoted follower of the Demon King, who secretly practiced forbidden necromancy. Among the horrific discoveries, Ferdo noticed one of the territory's own soldiers chained inside the laboratory. His body turned into a subject of cruel experimentation as monster organs were surgically grafted onto human flesh. Even Luria, who rarely showed emotion, could barely contain her fury after witnessing such unimaginable cruelty. Thessalos had crossed every possible moral boundary, making his execution feel completely justified. But despite reaching that conclusion, she grew suspicious of Ferdo himself. The laboratory had been hidden with incredible secrecy, yet our boy had located it without hesitation. Ignoring the question, Ferdo focused entirely on a pile of research papers scattered across the room. After digging through them, he finally found the document he'd been hoping to find. The manuscript laid out Thessalos' greatest achievement, an unfinished technique capable of creating infinite mana cultivation. His research claimed that monsters naturally generated endless amounts of mana within their bodies, normally dark, impure, unusable energy. But if the biological process behind that endless production could be artificially replicated, it would become possible to create an unlimited supply of pure mana, surpassing every limit conventional magic circles imposed. The documents also revealed Thessalos' true ambitions. He'd intended to raise an undead army powerful enough to destroy the nobles who exiled him to the dragon territory, dreaming of ascending beyond ordinary mages to become an archmage through forbidden means. So basically this Discord mod is just mad that he isn't a mod in the group chat anymore. Those pages dragged up memories Ferda desperately wished to forget. In his previous life, he himself had once chased that very same research as a tool for revenge. Fate had once again dropped the forbidden technique directly into his hands, and he knew better than anyone that mastering it would dramatically shorten his path toward the 8th circle. Sensing his hesitation, Luria pointed out that such knowledge was exactly the kind of power every human mage craved, and since nobody else knew about the laboratory, keeping the research would be effortless. To her, it looked like an opportunity too good to refuse. Instead of giving in, Ferda made a completely unexpected call. Without the slightest hesitation, he handed every document over to Luria and ordered her to burn down the laboratory and everything in it. The decision genuinely stunned her. As a mage herself, she couldn't understand why anyone would willingly toss away knowledge capable of reshaping the entire world. Ferda admitted the research held unimaginable value, but he questioned whether any amount of power could justify the price of obtaining it. He'd already lived through those consequences once. Rather than walk that same road again, he chose to erase the technique for good. Protecting Valdrova's future mattered far more to him than chasing limitless magical strength. Looking straight at Luria, he entrusted her with destroying every forbidden document. After silently studying him for a few moments, Luria accepted without hesitation. Brilliant blue dragon flames burst from her hand and instantly swallowed the papers, the supernatural fire spreading rapidly through the underground lab and reducing every manuscript, every experiment, every mutilated corpse to ash. Ferda quietly watched the flames consume it all, understanding better than anyone that magic always reflects the heart of its creator. Thessalos' mana had been thoroughly corrupted by years of hatred, resentment, and obsession. Long ago, our boy had carried almost identical emotions in his own heart. He knew that if he embraced this research, those same feelings would eventually consume him all over again. Remembering who he used to be, Ferda recalled surviving only by constantly feeding his hatred, and for the first time in a long while, that painful memory no longer weighed on him so heavily. As he watched the ashes drift through the burning laboratory, he felt a quiet sense of relief, as the last traces of that dangerous legacy disappeared for good. Luria watched him carefully. Until now she'd viewed Ferda as an unpredictable, dangerously unstable guy, but his actions were starting to chip away at that impression. She still couldn't fully understand him, but her opinion was slowly shifting. With the lab fully consumed by dragonfire, Luria suggested leaving the damp underground chamber behind. No reason to linger around the smell of blood and death, especially with the Grand Duchess's engagement ceremony drawing near. Hearing that, Ferda's exhausted expression finally gave way to genuine anticipation, as his thoughts turned toward meeting his future bride again. The story cuts to the day of the engagement ceremony at Archduchess Valdrova's castle. Before the ceremony starts, Luria checks whether Ferda has finished writing his engagement vows. He confirms they're done, and explains that the Archduchess wanted them to exchange personally written vows as part of the moon ceremony, revealing her surprisingly romantic side. Luria gets frustrated, calling that only a nice way of framing the situation, unable to accept that the symbol of absolute power is holding her engagement ceremony somewhere worse than a stable, something she feels tarnishes her teacher's dignity. Ferda notices the worry on Luria's face, and realizes that even though she isn't exactly thrilled about the engagement itself, she sincerely wants Valdrova to be happy. Watching her wrestle with those conflicting feelings leaves him a little sad. Luria quickly catches his expression and gets annoyed, warning him not to wrinkle the formal clothes she worked so hard to prepare. Our boy quietly takes the heat, figuring it's fine if she wants to vent on him. As they keep yapping, Ferda mentions that everything stayed quiet since their last meeting, then brings up the current state of the Archduchy, pointing out that none of the feudal lords seem capable of holding the front lines. Luria agrees. Things were manageable when the feudal lords had autonomy, she explains, but with nobody supervising them, they've gotten obsessed with lining their own pockets, crushing citizen complaints with military force to the point a large-scale rebellion feels inevitable. Ferda realizes the situation is far worse than he thought, figuring it could be solved instantly if the Archduchess personally stepped in. A single command from her would have everyone begging for forgiveness. As Luria walks off, she tells him he'll soon understand exactly why the Archduchess refuses to interfere. Moments later, Ferda's told to take his seat and wait as the engagement ceremony is announced and begins. He feels the overwhelming pressure roll through the doorway, like the air itself is crushing his whole body, and starts wondering whether someone like him truly deserves to stand before Valdrova. Then Valdrova appears in her majestic dragon form and extends her hands. Luria officially opens the moon ceremony, explaining that this ritual will unite mortality and immortality into one, forging a golden bond that neither heavenly authority nor the passage of time can ever sever, declaring that the mortal will overcome the unknown and cast aside all fear. Luria hands Ferda the ceremonial liquor. The moment he drinks it, he realizes it's no ordinary liquor. As it takes effect, the dragon's overwhelming aura starts to fade. Luria continues, declaring that the immortal will become whole by erasing the endless futility of eternal existence. It's Valdrova's turn to drink, but the second she reaches for the liquor, her hands start trembling uncontrollably. Unable to steady herself, she accidentally throws the drink away and insists on restarting the whole ceremony. A short while later, the ritual starts over. As Luria repeats the ceremonial words, Ferda drinks another cup, growing completely bewildered, realizing he's already been through this loop more times than he can count. I think she's trying to get our boy drunk to do something later. Anyways, even though this is literally the first time he's ever touched alcohol in his life, he's already had way too much, and starts worrying that continuing like this could get dangerous. Meanwhile, Valdrova gets so nervous she drops the ceremonial liquor a second time, which finally pushes Luria past her limit. She briefly excuses herself, marches over to Valdrova, and lets her have it, reminding her that marrying a mortal had been her own decision, that she'd endured everything to make this ceremony happen, only for her mistress to hide while her fiancé stood right there waiting. She warns that this kind of behavior leaves a terrible impression, firmly orders Valdrova to face her fiancé with confidence, and warns that if she spills the engagement liquor one more time, she won't let it slide. After the lecture, Luria returns to the ceremony, and by this point Ferda is already worn out just from listening to her go off. Luria asks if he heard all of it. Ferda admits the shouting hit so hard it honestly felt no different from a dragon's breath. Luria sighs and explains she had no other choice if she wanted the ceremony to go smoothly, finally revealing the real reason behind Valdrova's behavior. Valdrova is actually shy of interacting with humans, and because of that fear she almost never leaves her den except to hunt monsters. Ferda's left shocked, unable to believe the mighty Valdrova has such an unexpected weakness, and starts worrying about how the ceremony can even continue like this. A few moments later, Valdrova finally steps outside in her human form, but she's completely covered in heavy armor, leaving almost nothing visible, even her face buried under an enormous helmet. Ferda remembers hearing dragons become incredibly beautiful when they take human form, but instead Valdrova looks more like a warrior marching onto a battlefield. Despite the odd sight, Luria resumes the ceremony, repeating the vows, the mortal overcoming the unknown and casting aside fear, the immortal erasing the futility of endless existence, and pours the liquor again. This time Valdrova successfully drinks it. As she raises the cup, a small part of her face becomes visible, and her breathtaking beauty leaves Ferda completely stunned. He starts wondering if he's had too much of the ceremonial liquor, because every trace of his primal fear has vanished completely. In that moment he realizes everything before him was built for someone as ordinary as him. With the ritual complete, Luria announces it's time for both of them to recite the vows they wrote for each other. Ferda pulls out his letter, realizing that after coming back to the past, the words he originally prepared don't hold the same meaning anymore. Even so, he speaks from the heart, saying that although Valdrova barely knows him, he already knows everything about her, that she once gave him her heart, and through it he came to understand her completely. He'd witnessed her being betrayed and falsely accused again and again, yet through every hardship she kept fulfilling her responsibilities with dignity, even embracing people who hated her without reason, and never abandoning those she truly wished to love. Ferda admits her unwavering kindness was what guided him back onto the right path, and because of that he vows to give her his huge heart, just as she once gave him hers, declaring her his sovereign and his everything. Finally, he adds one heartfelt line that was never actually written in his vows, that it's an absolute honor to be engaged to such a beautiful woman. Valdrova stays completely silent. After hearing every word, Luria then asks for the bride's vows in return. But instead of answering, Valdrova quietly turns around and walks back inside. With no other option, Luria officially declares the ceremony over, and asks Ferda to leave. Once he's gone, Luria immediately checks on Valdrova, who apologizes, and quietly asks if she can stay confined for the next 3 days. At first Luria totally misreads the situation, praising her teacher for what she assumes was an intentional devastating emotional blow dealt to Ferda, admiring what she thinks is dragon-tier elegance, and assuming the whole thing had been planned from the start. She even admits she'd been fooled by tactics she never could have predicted, believing the initiative now sits entirely in Valdrova's hands. But once she calms down, Luria suddenly realizes none of it was actually unintentional. Valdrova had genuinely been looking forward to the ceremony. Overwhelmed with embarrassment, Valdrova can only blush shyly in response, quietly admitting she'd wanted to read her own vows as the one welcoming her partner. When Luria asks why she didn't, Valdrova confesses she completely lost her nerve. The second she looked into Ferda's sharp eyes and heard his gentle voice, her mind went totally blank, and she couldn't even bring herself to face him while speaking her feelings. Our boy's Riz worked on her. Watching her master act like this leaves Luria speechless too. Even on such a happy day, she still feels it's her duty to offer a warning, reminding Valdrova that Ferda is now her official fiancé and will govern the Eastern Territory as her representative. She explains that humans often change once they gain power, just like the Third Imperial Prince once did. Those words instantly turn Valdrova's expression cold. Luria apologizes for dragging up painful memories from decades ago, but believes it was the best advice she could give. Valdrova calmly replies that she understands Luria's concern, since mortals are destined to disappear one day, and figures it's better to bury these unfamiliar emotions deep inside her her heart. Meanwhile, Ferda rests alone in his room after the ceremony, still unable to fully process that he's now engaged to the great Valdrova. In his past life, hatred and rage had consumed him so completely, he never got to feel anything like this. But this time everything feels different. Ever since meeting her, he can't stop replaying those moments in his head, and his red circle has gone completely berserk, driven by some strange feeling he can't fully understand. Our boy is not rage-baited anymore. He got rizzed, but an uncontrolled circle can destroy its own caster. But Ferda knows that if handled right, it can also become a serious opportunity for growth. Having already reached the peak once in his previous life, climbing back up wouldn't be hard. A circle requires both mana and mental fortitude, and while his current mana as a first circle wizard is still limited, his mind had once reached the level of an archmage. Using that edge, he carefully channeled every bit of raging mana without wasting a drop, layering it together to forge the second circle. Within just 3 days, Ferda advanced to the second circle, one step closer to Valdrova. Not long after, Ferda travels with Luria, who's honestly stunned that he reached the second circle in only 3 days. She'd noticed his room stayed locked, and wondered if red circle wizards normally grow this fast. Ferda explains that every wizard grows at their own pace, while quietly reflecting on the hidden downside of the red circle. Each new circle demands an even stronger emotional trigger, and the strongest emotion baked into the circle slowly becomes part of the caster's own personality. His own circle had first awakened through overwhelming hatred. As they keep walking, Luria brings him to the ruler's office, where he'll now handle his duties. Even though he's only serving as the Grand Duchess's representative, the office has already been fully prepared for him, and our boy immediately notices the care Valdrova put into every little detail. Even inside a dragon's fortress, everything reflects consideration for her fiancé. Taking his seat, Ferda officially begins his first duty as the Grand Duchess's regent, realizing her territory had been largely neglected because of how stretched thin her responsibilities were. After displaying Thessalos's head and exposing his crimes, though, the surrounding lords have gotten extremely cautious around him, and thanks to Luria's help, managing the territory has gotten a lot easier. His first move is sending letters to every lord he's previously met. Luria explains these will serve as his first official greeting. After taking office, Furter informs the nobles he'll now oversee internal affairs as regent, telling them not to bother replying if they oppose the decision, figuring silence would show mutual respect. With the nobles handled, Furter turns his attention to another major problem: countless monsters corrupting farmland just by existing, claiming countless innocent lives. Even though Grand Duchess Valdrova keeps the disaster-class giant monsters in check, even she can't wipe out every lesser monster across the territory. To fix that, Furter decides recruiting capable people comes first. When Luria asks if he already has someone in mind, Furter hands her a list of names: Burnell, Zed, Echidna, Hallis, and one unknown scholar. Luria is clearly unimpressed by that last name. Together they travel to the city of scholars, Escalaria, to hunt down their first candidate. Furter explains it's natural. Luria wouldn't recognize the scholar, since the man's talent was never revealed to the world. Luria questions whether he just made the list up on the spot, and Furter assures her the info took a very long time to gather. Deep down he remembers this used to be his personal hit list. Back then hatred had driven him to study every achievement of these people, while hunting for flaws he could exploit for revenge. Our boy just have beef with everybody, including the viewers watching that isn't subscribe. Anyways, looking back now he realizes those obsessive thoughts were nothing but paranoia. Still, tracking down this scholar inside such a massive city won't be easy. While thinking through their next move, Furta and Luria sit beside a statue in the middle of the marketplace. A nearby fruit seller notices them and offers up the Academy's most popular honey-glazed fruit as a snack. Furta asks the vendor whether many Academy graduates pass through the stall. The seller proudly says he's worked there for years and seen countless graduates come and go. Furta then asks about the scholar known as the Messy Scholar. Luria immediately frowns at the nickname, wondering why anyone would bring someone that messy into their castle. The fruit seller recognizes the nickname but admits he can't remember every face after serving so many customers over the years. Unable to help further, he offers them 3 sugar-glazed fruit skewers for 5 cubes. Luria pays right away, insisting it's purely payment for information, but happily digs in with an unexpectedly childlike expression. Watching her reaction genuinely surprises Furta, who'd assumed Luria had long since buried her emotions like he had, and realizes she can still show such adorable, carefree sides. As he keeps staring, Luria mistakenly thinks he wants one of her skewers, instinctively pulling them away before awkwardly offering him one anyway. Furta gently declines and tells her to finish eating, since the sky's already going dark and it's time to head back. Elsewhere, another man is shown in complete panic as all his research papers get blown away by the wind. At Veritas Academy, the 525th graduation ceremony is underway, marking the end of another academic year. Among the graduates is Bernal Marquis, a scholar known as the Academy's greatest freshman and its worst graduate. As Bernal receives his diploma, several people approach to congratulate him, but their presence instantly makes him uneasy. Since the moment they surround him, they remind him it's finally time to pay back what he owes. Bernal laughs nervously, knowing almost everything he owns is buried under debt. Those men have even shown up at his home repeatedly demanding payment, but Bernal keeps stalling for more time. They remind him they've waited years, patiently hoping he'd finally graduate and pay up. While they're talking, one of them suddenly catches a disgusting smell and discovers a horrifying animal carcass nearby, disgusted by the sight. Bernal panics and clarifies it's not an ordinary animal, it's a monster corpse. He explains his research focuses on turning worthless monster corpses into mana stones and energy sources, admitting the materials are extremely hard to come by, but insisting that if it works out it could be a massive breakthrough for the entire continent. The boss has zero patience for his yapping, reminding Bernal that he'd waited this long because Bernal claimed to be working on groundbreaking research. But despite all that time, the boss wants to know if any of it can actually make money right now. Bernal nervously admits it probably can't. Not yet, because there are still too many problems left to solve. The boss smirks and mocks him for being a researcher who knows nothing about the real world, then orders him to drop the research entirely, and offers another way to clear his debt: weapons research, which pays well. He reminds Bernal he was once the top freshman in his class, then pulls out a sharp dagger, terrifying him. Seeing the blade, Bernal desperately tries to explain he actually has another research proposal. Without warning, the boss hurls the dagger between Bernal's legs, making him scream. The boss warns him he's tried being nice, but Bernal keeps pushing his luck, making it clear that someone in his position doesn't get to be picky. Bernal trembles, insisting he absolutely cannot make weapons, begging to work on something else, but the boss has completely lost patience, kicking him in the head and pinning him to the ground, shouting that Bernal clearly isn't listening, furious that he keeps shooting down every option they give him. With his anger maxed out, the boss tells Bernal to just die, reminding him that as loan sharks they can't afford to lose even a single coin. The sharks surround Bernal and start beating him with punches and kicks. Bernal screams in pain, begging them not to hit his head. As the beating drags on, Burnell genuinely starts to fear he's about to die. Just then, someone shows up and orders the loan sharks to stop. The newcomer calmly remarks that it seems he's come to the right place. It's our boys and came to save the day. Who explains he also has business with Burnell. Puffing on a cigarette, the loan shark boss sizes Furter up as some rich out-of-town kid and asks if Burnell borrowed money from him too. Furter calmly denies it. The boss tells him to wait his turn, explaining he'll beat Burnell just enough to make sure he can still talk. Furter points out that's actually going to be a problem. Gesturing to Burnell lying badly injured on the ground, he explains he doesn't need Burnell's mouth, he needs Burnell's brain. Instead, Furter offers to pay off Burnell's entire debt himself. The boss reveals the total. With interest comes out to a hefty 72 gold coins, doubting Furter actually has that kind of money. Furter confidently assures him he does, dropping a bag of gold, gleaming coins on the ground, and calmly stating he's got more than enough to cover it. The loan sharks are floored by the sight of the gold. The boss looks at Burnell and smirks, realizing he's got someone this wealthy backing him, remarking that Burnell is truly lucky. Just as the boss reaches for the coins, Luria suddenly grabs his gooning hand. Furter warns him their deal isn't finished yet, questioning where exactly he thinks he's putting his hands. The boss groans in pain, demanding to know what Furter means, accusing him of changing the terms. Furter reminds him he'd clearly asked for Burnell's brain, but after seeing him beaten this badly, he doubts that brain's going to function properly anymore. He argues that if the sharks damage the merchandise, they owe compensation for it. Meanwhile, Burnell sits nearby, badly hurt and completely lost. The boss, stunned by Furta's absolutely unhinged logic, reminds him Burnell's a person, not merchandise, desperately demanding Luria let go of his hand, visibly shocked that a girl could have this kind of strength. Luria eventually releases him, leaving his wrist in agony. Furta tells Luria he's counting on her. She calmly replies, it looks like she doesn't even need to step in, then releases an overwhelming wave of mana, instantly creating a crushing atmosphere that freezes the sharks in place. The boss wonders out loud if this terrifying power is actually some kind of magic. Furta lays out two options for the loan sharks: pay compensation for brutally beating Burnell, or take the exact same beating they gave him. Furta reminds them that loan sharks can't afford to lose even a single coin, confidently betting they'll pick the second option without hesitation. He then declares all of them are getting a proper backshot to settle the debt. Luria gets ready to fight, and the moment the boss sees her, he's completely terrified. Luria proceeds to beat the loan sharks one after another, their screams echoing through the area, until they're all thoroughly wrecked and finally clear out. Once they're gone, Burnell turns to Furta and Luria and sincerely thanks them for saving him, admitting he has no idea how he could ever repay them. He introduces himself as Burnell Marquis, also known as the Messy Scholar, and asks for Furta's name in return. Furta introduces himself as Furta Valdrova. The second Burnell hears that, he's completely floored, immediately dropping to his knees realizing Furta belongs to the Valda family. He apologizes for failing to recognize the Grand Duke's husband. Furta calmly waves it off, saying it makes sense Burnell wouldn't know, so there's nothing to worry about, and reveals the real reason he came is that he'd heard about Burnell's research. Burnell is stunned that anyone would actually be interested in his work. Furta confirms he'd heard Burnell was researching ways to make use of monster corpses, explaining the Far East has an endless supply of them, making it the perfect place for that kind of research. Furta invites him to Castle Valdrova, promising to fully back his research with no restrictions, every material, all the funding, and the facilities he'd need. Burnell is overwhelmed with joy, his mood instantly brightening, and he can't hide his excitement over the offer. Watching him light up like that, Luria quietly whispers to Furta that she genuinely wonders if Burnell is sane. After letting him enjoy the moment, Furta finally lays out the condition attached to the offer: full support in exchange for Burnell producing actual weapons through his research. The second he hears that, the smile drops off his face. He flatly refuses, believing weapons only take lives and destroy peace, since his greatest wish is for the land to stay peaceful. Furta acknowledges that Burnell genuinely values peace, but steers the conversation toward the monsters Burnell's own research relies on, laying out the harsh reality behind them. A single monster in the Far East is capable of killing countless people. Burnell is left completely shaken listening to it. Furta continues, explaining that once every 3 days, the Grand Duke personally marches to the front lines, where colossal monsters gather. Monsters powerful enough to erase an entire city like Eskla in a single instant. Every single time the Grand Duke enters battle, she's putting her own life on the line, while the people who know nothing about that brutal reality just live their peaceful lives, standing on top of the sacrifices she makes without a clue. Because of that, Furta explains he desperately needs someone capable of building powerful weapons that could actually help take those monsters down. Only by strengthening humanity's ability to fight can he lighten the Grand Duke's burden. And that's the real reason he wants to hire Burnell. He wants the very man everyone mocks to become the chief researcher of Castle Valdrova. As he finishes explaining, Furta hands Burnell an official appointment letter. Burnell is left speechless, completely floored by the offer in front of him, but he still hesitates, wrestling internally with the thought of forging weapons with his own hands. The narration then jumps forward to reveal Burnell's future. He'll eventually become known as Burnell Marquis, the brilliant scholar who ushers in the age of magical engineering. The future Ferda already knows shows Bernal ultimately becoming a man willing to wage war in order to protect peace.